Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going north of the border for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty dramatic stuff up in Canada.
Oh, is it ever?
Yeah, we're talking about the recent resignation of Canada's Finance Minister.
Chrystia Freeland.
Chrystia Freeland, that's right.
Yep, in a very
In a turbulent time.
turbulent time. I mean, there's a looming trade war
Oh, yeah, with the U.S.
with the U.S. Trump is president-elect now.
Yeah, that's right.
And, oh, yeah, by the way, the Canadian dollar just dipped below 70 cents.
A lot going on.
A lot going on up there.
Definitely a lot to try and make sense of.
So,
Okay.
what do we got for this deep dive?
We have a National Post opinion piece
Okay.
and a very lively
Oh, really?
Reddit thread
Okay.
discussing the article.
So people are fired up about this.
Oh, yeah, they are.
So we've got to figure out, like, okay, why did she resign?
Right.
What is Trudeau doing or maybe not doing in response to this whole thing?
Exactly.
And what does it mean for our neighbors to the north?
Yeah, what does this all mean for Canadians? Okay, so,
Let's start with that resignation letter.
okay,
It wasn't just a standard, I'm moving on type of note.
right.
She lays out some pretty serious accusations against Trudeau.
Oh, like what?
Well, she claims that he prioritizes, political maneuvering and the Liberal Party's interests over sound economic management.
So basically putting his party
Exactly.
ahead of the country.
Ahead of the good of the country
Wow.
and the country's finances.
Okay, and I think she specifically called out the deficit, right, as evidence of this?
Exactly. The deficit is currently sitting at $62 billion,
Oh, wow.
which is a lot higher than the $40 billion projected
Yeah, that's a lot higher.
in the spring budget.
Yeah. So essentially the government is spending a lot more than it's taking in.
That's right. And that means that, down the road, we could be looking at potential tax hikes or cuts to social programs.
That's concerning. I mean, it's no wonder that people are, feeling a little anxious about the economy.
Absolutely. And what makes this even more interesting is how Trudeau has responded, or rather,
Or hasn't.
hasn't responded. He's been totally silent to the public since this resignation.
He hasn't said anything.
Nothing to the public.
Wow. But he did address his Liberal Party members, right?
Yes, he did. At their Christmas party, no less.
Really?
Yeah. He praised his team's work and took some yabs at the Conservative opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre.
Okay.
In fact, he even declared, quote, "We are the greatest."
Oh my gosh, that's a pretty stark contrast to what people are feeling right now economically,
Absolutely. And it kind of feels tone deaf given that Freeland's resignation letter directly tied these economic anxieties to his leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty ironic that he's always, claiming to love this country and to work for all Canadians,
Right.
but he's not really addressing their concerns.
Exactly. And this has led some people to speculate that, maybe he's not in touch with what average Canadians are going through.
Yeah. So, on top of all of this,
Yeah.
there are whispers that about 60 Liberal MPs might want him to step down.
Yeah. And if that's true,
Yeah.
it really adds a whole other layer of complexity to this whole situation, because it suggests that, the dissatisfaction with Trudeau isn't limited to just the public.
Right.
It's brewing within his own party.
Yeah. So can he weather this storm, or is this
Right.
is this it for him?
Is his leadership in serious jeopardy?
I mean, we have Freeland resigning,
Right.
and then Trudeau just going radio silent.
To the public, yeah.
What are Canadians saying about all this?
Oh,
I mean, I've heard that the Reddit thread
yeah.
about this is pretty heated.
Oh, the Reddit thread is very lively.
Oh, really?
The overall sentiment is one of frustration and disappointment with Trudeau.
Yeah, I mean, the economy is shaky. People are looking for reassurance from their leader.
Yeah.
They want a plan.
Exactly. And they're not getting it.
So what are they saying on Reddit? I mean,
Wow.
give us some examples.
Some of them are pretty colorful.
Okay.
One user called Trudeau Canada's herpes sore,
Oh, my God.
which, it's a bit harsh. But it really captures the level of frustration
Yeah.
that some are feeling.
They're not mincing words,
Not at all.
but I'm sure it's not all, anti-Trudeau sentiment, right?
Oh, you're right. There are a variety of opinions in the thread.
Like what?
Well, some users defend the NDP's decision to support the Liberal government,
Okay.
arguing that it's necessary, to prevent a Conservative win.
Oh, so they're kind of the lesser of two evils?
Right. But then others see it as enabling Trudeau's inaction.
Okay, so they're not happy with them either.
No. And then there's a contingent that, while they're unhappy with Trudeau, they're also worried about what a Pierre Poilievre premiership would look like.
So they don't like their options.
Not really.
Yeah, it's kind of a rock and a hard place situation.
It does seem that way. And then another interesting observation from the thread is that, some people were saying that AI could easily replicate Trudeau's speeches.
Oh, yeah, they saw those comments.
Yeah, so what they're implying there is that his messaging lacks substance.
Yeah, it's all style and no substance.
Exactly. But hold on, we can't forget about,
Yeah.
the elephant in the room here.
What's that?
The international elephant.
Oh, right.
What about Trump's trade war threat?
Yeah.
I mean, this adds a whole other layer of complexity to Canada's economic woes.
Right. He's threatening 25% tariffs.
Yeah, that's right. A 25% tariff on Canadian goods, which could have a significant impact on the Canadian economy.
And it doesn't seem like Trudeau has a plan to counter that.
No, not a clear one at least.
So the article in the National Post basically argued that
Yeah.
his lack of action here, plus, the silence on Freeland's resignation, all of this is basically showing a lack of respect for the Canadian people.
A lack of respect for the people he governs.
So he's in a tough spot,
Yeah.
but he's saying he's going to fight for his position.
He is. He recently met with his national caucus,
Okay.
and he claims that he's listening carefully to their concerns and reflecting on them.
We've heard that before.
Haven't we?
Back in October, when there was all that other pressure, he was saying the same thing.
Yeah, there is a pattern of Trudeau promising to listen and reflect, but then ultimately dismissing the concerns raised.
Yeah, but now.
Well, with Parliament going on a 6-week break, he has a lot of time to hunker down and deflect.
Yeah, just push it aside.
Yeah, while Canadians are left wondering, if anything he's actually going to do.
So a lot up in the air.
There is. So we left off with Trudeau, facing this pretty big crisis of confidence.
Yeah, a lot of Canadians are feeling pretty disillusioned right now.
Right, especially with the economy so uncertain and the threat of that trade war hanging over everything.
Yeah, but Trudeau, he's shown some resilience in the past, right?
Oh, he has.
Yeah.
He's definitely weathered some pretty big controversies before.
Yeah, he's managed to bounce back.
And come out on top.
But this whole Freeland resignation, this feels different.
You think so?
I do. This isn't like some political scandal. It's about the economy,
Yeah.
something that impacts every Canadian.
Right.
And she didn't just quietly leave. She directly accused Trudeau
Yeah.
of mismanaging the country's finances.
That's a pretty big blow.
Yeah. That's got to sting, even for someone like Trudeau.
Right. He's known for kind of being Teflon,
Yeah, but this is like
Yeah, this is
coming
different.
from someone in his inner circle.
Exactly. Someone who was right there.
Yeah. So what are his options here?
Well,
Can he actually regain the trust that he's lost?
maybe. He could try to acknowledge the concerns that he, promised to do better.
Okay.
Maybe even shuffle his cabinet, Oh.
Okay. Signal a fresh start.
Right. Project an image of a leader who's listening and willing to change course.
But haven't we seen this before?
Mm.
Think about his promises on electoral reform,
Uh-huh.
how he handled SNC-Lavalin.
Right, he's good at the promises.
Yeah,
But the follow-through is a different story.
exactly. So people might be a little skeptical this time around.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
They might see it as just more of the same rhetoric
Right.
without any real action.
So what would it take?
It would take a pretty big shift
Okay.
in his approach to really convince people that this time is different.
Okay, so then there's the elephant in the room,
Right.
the trade war
Right.
with the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
How can Trudeau navigate that and deal with all this stuff happening internally?
That's where things get really tricky. He
Right.
needs to find a way to stand up to Trump and these protectionist policies without, starting a full-blown trade war.
Yeah.
That would hurt everybody.
It's a tough balancing act.
It is. It takes diplomacy firmness.
Yeah.
A clear strategic vision.
And he's got to hold his party together, too.
Right.
What if those rumors are true about all those Liberal MPs wanting him out?
Right. He's fighting a war on two fronts
Yeah.
against a potential trade war.
Yeah.
And a rebellion within his own ranks.
So let's say he's out.
Okay.
He steps down. Who takes his place?
Well, someone like Mark Miller,
Okay.
the current immigration minister,
Yeah.
he could be a strong contender.
Yep.
He's been recognized as competent
Okay.
handling that portfolio,
Yeah.
and some see him as a capable leader.
What about Freeland?
Oh, interesting.
She resigned, but she's still really popular.
She is.
And that letter,
Yeah.
while it was critical of Trudeau, she also positioned herself as someone who's
Right.
fiscally responsible.
Priorities, sound economic management.
Right. Could this actually help her?
It absolutely could. Her resignation was a bold move.
Yeah.
And it could definitely be perceived as putting the country's interests ahead of her own ambitions.
Okay.
So if she plays her cards, right, she could emerge as kind of a savior for the party,
Yeah.
someone who can unite them and restore public trust.
So the act of criticizing Trudeau could actually make her the leader.
Politics is full of ironies.
Yeah.
But of course, we can't rule out the possibility of a dark horse candidate.
Right.
Someone who's not really on anyone's radar right now.
Yeah.
But seizes the moment.
Okay, so we've got Trudeau maybe trying to ride out the storm,
Okay.
maybe stepping down and triggering a leadership race. This trade war threat is looming over everything.
It is.
What does this actually mean for the average Canadian?
Well, I mean, the most immediate concern for most people is going to be the economy.
Right.
I mean, the falling Canadian dollar,
Yeah.
the threat of tariffs, the growing deficit,
Yeah.
all have the potential to really hit people's wallets.
Yeah.
We could see prices go up on everyday goods, jobs being lost,
Yeah.
a general slowdown in economic activity.
And it's not just economic, right?
No.
A trade war could really damage the relationship between Canada and the U.S.,
Absolutely.
impacting things like travel,
Yeah.
cultural exchange, even that sense of shared values and identity
Right.
that the two countries have.
Definitely. And then all the political instability within Canada itself. I mean, that could lead to even more polarization and division.
Making it even harder to solve the problems
Absolutely.
that they're facing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, Trudeau staying or going, maybe a new Liberal leader coming in. But what about the wild cards?
Oh.
The things that could really shake things up.
Right. Well, so far we've been focusing mostly on, like, domestic politics in Canada.
Right.
But we can't forget about this potential trade war with the U.S.
Yeah, it's a huge wild card.
It's not just an economic threat. It could have major political consequences.
Like, what if those tariffs actually go into effect? How would Canadians react?
Imagine, like, public anger boils over protests are erupting across the country. Anti-U.S. sentiment is on the rise.
Okay.
And this kind of, nationalist fervor,
Yeah.
while it's understandable, could actually play right into Trudeau's hands.
Really? How so?
Well, he could position himself as, like, the defender of Canadian sovereignty,
Okay.
rally the country against a common enemy. It's a classic political tactic.
Yeah, unite everyone against an outside threat to kind of distract from the problems at home.
Exactly.
So it's a bit like wag the dog.
A little bit.
But I mean, wouldn't a trade war still be bad for Canadians?
Oh, absolutely. The economic consequences could be really severe.
Even if it helps Trudeau.
Right. But sometimes political survival trumps economic pragmatism.
So he might be willing to take that risk.
He might gamble that a short-term economic hit
Yeah.
is worth the long-term political gain.
Okay, so that's a pretty bold move.
Mm-hmm.
What about a snap election? Could he use that trade war threat call an early election?
Oh, it's definitely possible he could frame the election as, like, a choice between standing up to Trump or caving to his demands.
Oh, yeah.
And this would force the opposition parties to take a clear stance
Right.
on the trade war, potentially dividing them and giving Trudeau an advantage.
That's pretty clever.
And, let's be honest, during times of uncertainty, people often prefer the familiar, even if they're not totally happy with it.
Yeah, better the devil.
Exactly.
But we can't forget about the other players here. I mean, the NDP, they've been supporting the Liberal government. What if they say enough is enough?
What if they withdraw their support?
Yeah, and maybe trigger a non-confidence vote.
Exactly. It's a risky move for sure, but they might calculate that it's worth it. If they feel like Trudeau has betrayed their trust or failed to deliver on his promises.
So they could try to position themselves as like the real progressive alternative,
Right.
hoping to get those disillusioned Liberal voters.
Exactly. That would definitely shake things up.
Okay, so we've got the trade war,
Yeah.
a potential snap election,
Uh-huh.
the NDP potentially pulling the plug.
Right. What else?
Anything else?
Well, one final thought.
Yeah,
What if something completely unexpected happens?
like what?
I don't know. A major scandal,
Okay,
a global crisis, a sudden shift in public opinion.
yeah,
Any of those things could completely change the political landscape.
it's true. Politics can be pretty unpredictable.
That's why it's so important to stay informed, think critically about the information we're consuming, and be prepared for the unexpected.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Canadian politics, one thing is clear. Buckle up.
Yeah.
Things could get very interesting in the next few months.
Indeed, will Trudeau manage a comeback? Will a new leader emerge? Or will something totally unforeseen happen? Only time will tell.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious.